Welcome back to Cindy's Library. This is Cindy, and today I'm going to talk about what I read for the second half of May. Now, sadly, I had some issues in the month of May, health-wise, I mean. But the good news about that is I got a fair amount of reading done, it looks like. So, here we go. Let's see. Started off by reading A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor. Read this with the Lit Life podcast, and I can get what Angelina Stanford says about it. I can even see the outlines of it. Doesn't mean it's enjoyable for me, though, I'm afraid. Now, this doesn't mean this will be the last time I read Flannery O'Connor, and specifically her fiction, because her nonfiction, I understand, is an entirely different matter. But I'm also not entirely sure she is for me in spite of what she is trying to do. A Good Man is Hard to Find is about this family, grandmother, son, daughter-in-law, grandson and granddaughter. Basically, they start out on a vacation, and the same day they start out, the grandmother sees in a newspaper an article about a convict nicknamed the Misfit. And, well, let's just say things go on from there. Let's see, next is Anne of the Island, which I read for Montgomery. Oh, so fun to read about Anne being in college. She had such a wonderful college experience, and so wonderful the ending. If you know, you know. But yes, this is the book where Anne finally gets to go to college and all the fun she has there. So it's not that she's not exactly connected to Avonlea life anymore, but she's not solely connected to that anymore. She's got college life too, which is very interesting. Let's see, next I read They Came to Baghdad by Agatha Christie. This is a standalone. And let's see, we start with our young lady, Victoria Jones. Well, technically, I guess we have a kind of prologue with some mysterious figures, but we really start with Victoria Jones. She's a secretary, only a so-so as a secretary, typist, and within the first chapter that we see her, she gets fired. The next chapter, well, she's wandering around and sitting in whatever public place she goes to, she meets a young man, Edward. They are immediately attracted to each other. Certainly Victoria is attracted to him. He says that he has to leave on a business trip for his employer to Baghdad the next day. Well, Victoria decides to follow him. She finds a temporary job escorting a lady. I think she has a broken leg or something, and so she needs some help to Baghdad, and things go on from there. And Victoria and Edward are not the only ones coming to Baghdad. There's a huge international conference that'll be starting there in the relatively near future. So, what's going to happen? Will Victoria find Edward? And if she does, will that be a good thing or not? All good questions. See, I also read As You Like It by William Shakespeare, one of his comedies. So basically, you start out with the Duke being usurped and exiled by a brother. You have uh, Orlando being exiled by his elder brother. You have uh, Rosalind and Celia. Well, Rosalind is exiled by her uncle, the usurper, and her cousin Celia goes with her, all to Arden Forest, where many things happen, where identities are mistaken and then sorted out by the end, like a good Shakespeare play. Perhaps not Shakespeare's best comedic effort, but it's still a ton of fun and still totally worth reading, which is good because I'm going to be seeing it this summer. I also read the Fairacre Festival by Miss Reed. Haven't read Miss Reed for a while. She is a school teacher at Fairacre, and these are just gentle slice of life stories of life in the 50s and 60s in rural England. In this case, there is a bit of excitement. There's a huge storm that comes through. And, well, the long and the short of it is the worst damage is sadly to the church and its roof and even its tower, I think. And how they're ever going to get the money to pay for it, they aren't quite sure until someone comes up with the idea of doing a huge festival. And things go on from there. So wonderful to be back in Fairacre. I missed it. And next I read the third book in here, The Inimitable Jeeves. This one is interesting. My understanding is that they started as short stories and P.J. Wodehouse later rather connected them loosely to each other. But still, spending time with Wooster and especially Jeeves, totally worth it. We are introduced to a couple of cousins of birdies who are very much rascals, and a few other adventures. But mostly we spend time with Bingo Little. He and Birdie went to school together, and he is the sort who quickly falls in love with the next pretty girl he sees. And so he's like, she is an angel, Birdie. I must convince her to marry me, Birdie. Can you help me win her, Birdie? Yeah, let's just say, as always, it's a good thing that Birdie Wooster has Jeeves to help him out here. Let's see, I also finally finished Dante's Inferno, which is very, very interesting. This is the translation by Jason M. Baxter, by the way. Can highly recommend it. He, as you can see, he has footnotes as appropriate, explaining some of the references that we are least likely to get. But, yep, very interesting. We basically follow our character Dante, who wakes up and finds himself lost in the woods, and the way ahead to where he wants to go is blocked, but he encounters Virgil of the Aeneid fame as his guide, and he has to go first through all 7 layers of Inferno, which we get tons of descriptions of the punishments. But the interesting thing about this is it's basically one making the soul that's usually invisible visible, and the punishment very much fits the crimes that they are not repentant of. So we made it through Inferno. Next is Purgatorio, where we will be cleansed from all sin and made clean and ready to finally enter Paradiso. See, I also read What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama, translated by Allison Watts. But this and The Inimitable Jeeves was exactly what I needed with the month I had. Such a gentle story. This is called healing fiction in Japan. I forget the Japanese word, but that's basically what it means. And that's basically what it is. In this case, there's a community library, and we have 5 individuals, I believe, each with problems in their lives. They end up in the library, meet an interesting librarian who gives them recommendations for what they are looking for, and also a recommendation that has nothing with what they said they are looking for, but ends up being quite helpful to them. I suspect this will not be the last one of this genre that I read. I also read Henry V, The Astonishing Triumph of England's Greatest Warrior King by Dan Jones. Yep, and I read Shakespeare's Henry V earlier this year in preparation for this. Shakespeare's Henry V is quite amazing. Some of the best speeches ever are in there. But this opens it so much more. We learn about the world into which Henry V was born into. We learn about how his father became Henry IV. And we learn about the long preparation Henry V had after that, so that by the time he actually became king, he is arguably one of the best ever prepared kings England ever had seen, or up to that point, or saw afterwards. And his exploits after that, including, of course, the Battle of Agincourt, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's hard to get a full picture of Henry. We're limited in the sources, but Dan Jones gives us as much context and as much from the sources as there is. He also, I think, does a good job trying to help us put off the modern view and see Henry V more with a medieval mind, because whatever else they thought of him, everyone in his own time thought he was an excellent king. See, and I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So it's hard to say too much about this without giving spoilers away. can say that we follow Harry and his friends, Ron and Hermione, and everyone else at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for Harry's 4th year. We'll say things go more international in this book. It's a pretty thick book, but reads quite quickly. I'll also say this is the pivot point in the series. Everything after this is not the same as it was before this point. And I think that's everything I read for the second half of May. Oh, that's a pretty good pile there. Granted, I'd started some of these before May, and a couple of these for easy reads are not long, but I am pleased with how May turned out overall, in spite of everything that happened. So, how did your May read going? How did your May reading going? I'm not saying that correctly yet, am I? How did your May reading go? Hope it went just as well. Love to hear about any readathons or challenges you participated. Love to hear about your favorite read of the month. So, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly do appreciate it. So until next time, hope we all stay safe and healthy. And as always, happy reading.